where do you think you're going? I don't think you're supposed to go anywhere. You're supposed to be right here with me. What do we think? Welcome back, everyone. I hope you found the first video in this series really helpful. We kind of just went over the basic chop and how to get a good sound with that chop. If you haven't watched that video, you can watch it right here. And now we're going to talk about our first song, Revival by Newgrass Revival. And we're going to look at some specifics that Sam Bush does to make his Sam Bushy sound. But first, before I get these comments on YouTube asking what strings Sam plays with, or what picks he uses, or anything about his mandolin, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about those so we know, just so I don't get any of those comments like, oh, what are those strings? They might make my mandolin sound better. And they might, but we're just gonna talk about them, okay? She's mobile, folks. All right, so first, Sam Bush's mandolin. Sam Bush is playing a 1937 Gibson F5 that is named Haas. And the pick that Sam uses is just the plain old Fender celluloid pick. It's just 0.96 millimeters thick, and it's the standard guitar shape that you see. But the cool thing that Sam does is that Sam, instead of using the pointy edge, he actually flips it around in his finger, and he uses this rounded edge, and that's how he gets his chopping sound. Choppy chop. And for strings, Sam is using D'Addario Monels. The packaging looks like this, though these are the wrong ones. He actually uses medium plus. I just have mediums, so. So one thing that I don't quite know if it attributes to his chopping sound, or the sound of his mandolin, if you look at his string spacing is pretty wide. And that's pretty abnormal for a lot of mandolins to be that wide. I want to say when I play instruments that have that wide of a string spacing that it really does help my chopping. It makes it sound more full. Alright, after that silly intro of talking about Sam's mandolin and picks and all that fun stuff, let's go ahead and jump right into the song. So if you haven't heard the song Revival by Newgrass Revival, it was written by Peter Rowan. Please, please, please go listen to it before you start this lesson. If you haven't, go ahead, pause this video, and go listen to that. Come right back. So now that we know how this song goes, let's go ahead and dive right into that intro. So when I listen to this intro, the first thing that comes to mind is the use of his upstrokes when he's chopping. It reminds me a lot of how a snare drummer hits the snare and then lets the stick rebound and hit again on the upstroke, kind of like a ghost note. So it's like da da. On the mandolin, it looks something like this. So you might notice I'm not hitting a downstroke and upstroke chop through all of the strings. It's not. What it is the downstroke is hitting all those strings. The upstroke is just hitting really this E and A string and maybe the D string. So if you watched the first video, I talked about this open chord A chop. So it's basically taking that and adding an upstroke to it on the upbeat. So let's take a look at how we're doing that. So with my left hand and these fingers right here, we know that when we chop a downstroke, that these fingers are going to mute after we hit the strings. On the upstroke, what's happening is I'm lifting those fingers, allowing these notes to ring out, and then clamping those fingers back down so it doesn't make a sound. So it's really important to not let those upstroke notes ring out too long or sound something like this. So if we chop them off real quick, all of a sudden we get this really cool sound. Sounds just like that snare drum or like Sam Bush. Let's just take our right hand in this chord, this A chord. Let's go ahead and strum with the downstroke through all the strings, and then on the upstroke, we're just gonna try and hit that E and A strings. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Let's try and add the left hand into that. So the first left hand downstroke sounds like this and looks like this. So remember, I'm lifting these fingers off when I go to chop, and then putting them right back down afterwards. And so now what we want to do, before we add the upstroke with our right hand, is we want to add the next mute. And go ahead and lift up and back down again after that. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and try to add that upstroke with it. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. I want you to check out my right hand. It's never not moving. This is really, really important to help keep time during a song. And now what we do, when it gets quicker, it's the same movement. And then when we get into song tempo, the next thing you might be hearing, let's say in measure 2, 4, 6, and 8, is you might be hearing these ghost notes happen. These 16th notes that happen before he chops. So this is our 8th note. And the 16th note is just 2 beats within this beat. So, ta-ga, 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 ta-ga. So if you need help understanding this, go ahead and say a 2-syllable food item. So for me, I love tacos. So, taco, 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 taco. They're just down-up picks. Nothing too insane going on with the right hand other than the speed that we're going to have to get up to. So the best way to practice these ghost notes that Sam Bush does oh so well is to do it really slowly. We're going to do it without having to make this chord sound quite yet. Going to mute the strings. Nothing's ringing out. Remember, this is our 8th note beat, so 2 16th notes fit between us. So this very ending, where I'm playing the downstroke all the way through and the upstroke, is what we just learned. It's this sound. So to add those 16th notes in again, now let's try to speed that up a little bit. A little bit faster. I really like to use my wrist, and it's not just a wrist motion up and down. I'm kind of like you put a key in a door, right? And you're trying to unlock that door. It's a little bit of that motion too. Along with your wrist moving up and down. It's really weird to explain at first, but once you do it enough, kind of settles in. So the reason why I do this is when it gets up to speed, if I had to move my whole arm, it's doable. It just, I feel like I'm using a lot more force instead of just using this motion. So the best way to practice this is, 1, practice it very slow at first, and then next is just to do it a whole bunch. So something like this. Sped up, it goes like this. Even faster. So the first thing to do is to add that chop we learned on the intro with those 16th notes. So the 16th notes usually aren't sound out. You usually don't hear what note they are. You kind of hear the rhythmic pulse. You can hear a little bit of pick scratch on the string if you listen closely. Something like that. But what does happen is when you add your chop that we learned earlier, so if you get really good at this, all you have to do is add those 16th notes before it. So when you add it up to speed into the song, so when you get really comfortable with this, you can add variations to it. So the intro does those cool things. The verse kind of follows the same path, just over some different chords. We do an A, then we go to an F sharp minor, if you want to play it with your middle finger, index finger, and then have your ring and pinky kind of open to do the same action as you did down on this A chop. Then Then we have a D in closed position. Then we have a B minor that's made like this. It's all in the tab in the sheet music, which is available on my Patreon. So the reason I really picked this song wasn't the intro, even though it showed us some really cool things that Sam does. It's this bridge. He does some pretty amazing chops in this bridge. All right, so the 2-minute mark, let's go ahead and take a look at measure 50, the end of 49 into 50. You see a lot of 16th notes. Go ahead and listen to this measure on the song, just so you can get a feel of what it sounds like. So, just like we learned the intro with the 2 16th notes and the 2 8th notes, this is relatively comparable. We're just adding a bunch more 16th notes into a chop. So, if we broke this down, the first chop at the end of 49 happens on the and of 4. So usually on the and of 4, we're doing an upstroke, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So instead of doing an upstroke, we're going to do a downstroke on this one. It's going to get us ready to do this. So at the very end, it's just like the intro. The very end of this lick at the end of measure 50. But before that, we have 8 16th notes. So if we're counting, say this is our quarter note. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So if this is our quarter note, within each beat we have to have 4 16th notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's make this a little bit more simple for us. So we have 16th notes, we have 8 of those. We have 2 8th notes and we have a quarter. Let's go ahead and assign some syllables to that. So let's again use food. So for the 8th notes, I'm going to use taco. For the quarter note, let's use bread. And then for the 16th notes, let's see. It has to be 4 syllable. Let's see what we have that's 4 syllable. Wow, I really can't think of a 4 syllable food. Let's use watermelon. Watermelon. So that's gonna be our 16th note. So if our beat's like this, so we have 2 watermelons in a row. Watermelon, watermelon. Then we have a bread into a taco. So watermelon, watermelon, bread, taco, watermelon, watermelon, bread, taco. So let's try and make that fit our right hand. So watermelon, the first watermelon is just 16th notes. So watermelon, it's just down, up, down, up. And we do have a chop on the next wah part of the watermelon. Watermelon. So the first 2 beats look like this. Watermelon, watermelon. The next is really easy. It's bread, bread all the way through with the downstroke. And then we have the same chop we did in the intro. Taco, taco. So all together it looks like this. Watermelon, watermelon, bread. Taco, watermelon, watermelon, bread. Taco, watermelon, watermelon, bread. Taco. Perfect. Now, before that, there's an and on 4 on a downbeat. It might feel weird at first, but trust me, it's going to work out just fine. So slowly, 3, 4, and watermelon, watermelon, bread. Taco. 3, 4, and watermelon, watermelon, bread. Taco. A little faster. 3, 4, and watermelon, watermelon, bread. Taco. So the next thing we have to do is add our accents into that. So the accents happen on each chop. Remember, we're going to lift those fingers up just like this. When those chops happen, and when they're not happening during those 16th notes, we're just going to get this sound. So slowly it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and watermelon, watermelon, bread, taco. 3, 4, and. So faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, and watermelon, watermelon, bread, taco. 3, 4, and watermelon, watermelon, bread, taco. So up to speed, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, practice it really slow. Practice it really, really slow. And just take your time on it. So one more really cool thing that happens, go ahead and take the end of measure 55 into 56. If you look at that, we have a whole bunch of 16th notes happening. So let's, again, use watermelon, subdivide these out, and let's try to clap where the accent goes. So say this is our beat. Watermelon, watermelon. That's where our 16th note rests. So we're going to say watermelon and then clap where the chop should be. So let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Watermelon, 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 watermelon. Boom. Try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Watermelon, 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 and great. Let's try to do that with our right hand. It's going to look like this. Watermelon, 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 watermelon. Watermelon, 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 watermelon. So I'm going to start slow. I'm going to kind of ramp it up till it gets faster. It's going to look like this. Faster. Faster. Slow. So let's go ahead. When those chops happen, we're going to add a percussive chop with sound. Let's see how that goes. 3, 4. Great. Let's do it a little faster. 3, 4. Watermelon, 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 watermelon. 3, 4. Watermelon, 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 watermelon. So if you feel like this is too quick for you, that's okay. Take your time. Remember, you can always do this at a really slow tempo. No one's judging you. Remember, we're here to get better. So to finish this off, right before we do all this, a measure 55 on the 4th beat, we have to add 2 eighth notes. It's just like the chop we learned at the very beginning of this video, right? And at the very end, we just have to hit on 1 on measure, whatever measure that is, 57. One more chop on 1 on measure, whatever measure that is, 57. So altogether, it looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. All right, folks. Well, I hope that helped a little bit kind of demystify what Sam does on this song. Please, in the comment section, let me know if you have any questions. So at the end of this month, once I get through all my Sam Bush videos, I'm going to answer some YouTube questions that you guys might have, and kind of, if there's anything specific you have questions on, I'm going to answer those. We're going to make a whole video about it. All right. See you next time.